Ding, ding, ding goes the bell. Zing, zing, zing went my heartstrings.
From the moment I saw you, my bell.
Trigger warning for transphobia. Discussions of transphobia. Welcome to the Kitchen and Jorn show. Jen is off camera right now, but she's in the room. Say hi, Jen.
Hi, I'm here.
Yeah, Jen's here. She's off camera. Welcome to our 2-year update on Brie's transition.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been 2 years.
You may be thinking, wait, this video came out in January 2021. It hasn't been 2 years. Well, guess what, stinkers?
Well, I started socially transitioning through the summer of 2020, but I started hormones on August 3rd of 2020.
It's been 2 years since you came out to me. No, it hasn't. It has been.
It's been like 2.5.
You came out to me in May of 2020. Wow, it actually worked out. So, how have you been feeling since you started hormones?
Better.
How was the first year of hormones?
It was rough. It was, there was a lot of feelings and emotions that I wasn't really used to. Well, I was used to them, I just wasn't used to the intensity and like how, like, you know, I couldn't just be angry over them anymore.
It's funny because you keep saying like feelings that you weren't used to, but you're like mostly just gesturing to your boobs.
Okay, yes, well, these are new.
Yeah, how does it feel to have boobs?
Nice.
Because like these, I feel like the first years, like you had boobs.
Yeah. I mean,
You grew these.
yes.
You grew these on
Yeah,
Brie's boob farm.
Yeah, I haven't had any surgeries yet. Currently looking at a few, but turns out they take like a long time. Stay tuned for 2023, and then it's over for you hoes.
Do you feel like you're surprised at how much your body has changed, even in just 2 years with hormones?
Yeah. One thing I wish I had done, which you told me to do, but I didn't. You had suggested, just take a lot of pictures of yourself. Take a picture of yourself every day or every week so that you can see like the progress that you're making. And I was like, that's probably a good idea. And then I proceeded to not do it.
And so now you don't know how much progress you've made.
Yeah. It feels like nothing has changed sometimes.
You literally have like a full set of tits.
One thing I did learn is that I very much have to advocate for myself to doctors. If you are considering transitioning, and you do decide to go through with HRT, do a little research. You're gonna have to figure out what you want and what you're gonna have to advocate for it. No one told me like, it's time to take progesterone. I just had to decide one day like, I would like to be taking progesterone. There's no timeline but your own, and you need to figure out what it is and you need to push for it. No one else is gonna tell you what to do, unfortunately.
I feel like you felt like the first year that you were taking hormones, you felt like not a lot was happening. And then it kind of felt like a lot happened all at once.
Yeah, in the second year, once the second year started. It did feel like there were a lot more changes, like my skin got a lot smoother.
That happened fast. The first month or two, I was like, what's going on with this? My skin feel good.
Yeah.
It's soft. I would say like that was the first thing I noticed.
Okay. But I mean, like other things, like, just fat redistribution happens very slowly and doesn't really happen without surgery. But like, I have gotten some like hip meat.
I would say like you actually like right now, you almost have like a PCOS body.
I do.
So the PCOS body is like a lot of belly fat.
Yeah, apple shaped.
One thing that I think people don't realize is that like you need like liposculpting, you need like body shaping surgeries because like women's clothes are cut in such a way where like it assumes that the fat is going to be in certain areas. I think at first we found that the clothes you had to wear had to be kind of stretchy.
Yeah.
Because like structured stuff, what would happen is either it wouldn't fit or it would fit and then like the tit,
just be just
too much,
huge
not enough
vacuum
tit.
up
It would
here,
be
yeah.
like, your first year versus your second year on hormones, how do you feel like your brain was?
My brain was very harried that first year.
Yeah, I would
Yes.
say like the first year you were just like, guess what? I'm a teen girl and I mean it.
I was like picking fights with you for no reason. I would get really offended by things
Oh my God.
for no reason.
You picked a lot of fights in that first year. Oh my
Yeah.
God. You've been on hormones full time for like 2 years now.
Yes.
So like this is what your personality is gonna be like.
Kind of what I was before, but like better.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree. So that means that it's not that your personality necessarily changes, it's kind of just allowed to flourish in the way that it would naturally had you not been dealing with tremendous dysphoria.
Yes. Because there's a lot of coping skills that I kind of fashioned into a personality with chicken wire and duct tape.
I think your personality did change.
Yeah? How so?
You became a less angry person. Because the first year you were just like, anger rising! And then like, I think like it crested, and then it was like, all right. One thing that like I think we don't talk about, / I don't think I've ever talked about publicly, but like what the hell, why not? You were very angry person
was.
before you transitioned.
The anger did a couple of things. Like some of it was maladaptive trauma responses, but a lot of it was, a way to kind of force a sense of masculinity out of myself.
You were sort of trying to live your life, and you were also like trying to maintain this like illusion of a self that did not exist.
Yes.
And so you were sort of like living a double life in the same body.
Yeah, which was exhausting.
Yeah, which is exhausting, which means that like your ability to withstand frustration or anger or stuff like that was like very small. And it meant that you had like a temper. That going away was like a big game changer. I think like that's a big way your personality changed. Your personality kind of like was allowed to flourish. Like, because who you are is basically just a big lesbian.
Yeah.
What are some things that you feel like you learned?
Well, I have learned that, boy howdy, people treat women much differently than men.
Yeah,
Like,
isn't that wild?
It's one thing to know all of this going in. It's another to like experience it.
When you're walking down the street now, it's like it's like a thing where we kind of have to like, it's not just like me being like, who's around? Because I think you probably walked around, you used to walk around and be like, doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Everything's fine. Now it's like someone might catcall you, someone might threaten you, someone might call you a slur from a moving car.
Yeah, all those things have happened.
All those things have happened.
But in terms of good things, I've learned how to really process trauma better. Part of this has been getting a new therapist. It's one thing to learn better coping skills. It's another thing to like really go back and like be healing the things that have happened.
What are some other things that you've learned?
I've learned doing makeup is fun, but it's also really a pain in the ass. But it is worth it because people do tend to
treat you better,
and misgender me less and all of that. Definitely been misgendered wearing a dress and makeup, and it's like, come on.
Oh,
how much easier can I make this on you?
I have to fight people more. There are definitely times where I have to be like, it's her.
Going back to advocating for myself with doctors, I've had to really learn how to advocate for myself with everyone, with anyone that I meet. So when we went on our most recent trip, and you were at the spa, and I was just hanging out. There were these two women that I were, two older women that I was talking to, and one of them like misgendered me, and I corrected her, but I did it like really mealy mouth, like well, it's she, but it's okay. And her friend,
you told me
her
this.
friend was like, no, it's not okay. Like she needs to say the right things. And you need to make her say the right things. You need to make people treat you well. It's like, yeah, no, I do need to do that. I do need to not make excuses for people. And like, that's not to say that it needs to be a fight every time.
The thing that I've found actually is that when you tell 95% of people it's actually she, and I never say it in a way where I'm like, it's actually she. It's like, it's just kind of like, it's actually she. Just, for this interaction, you should address her properly. Like, don't say your boyfriend or your husband or sir. Most of the time, they are so horrified.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes they're not.
Sometimes they're not.
Also, I feel like a big thing was you finding community. Because like a lot of our friends are cis people.
Yes.
A great deal of them are straight people.
Yes.
And you are neither. How has that been?
It's actually been good. This is one of the few things the internet's actually good for. So Twitter's been helpful, joining different Discords or Slack channels. People with similar interests, most of whom are trans or just explicitly for trans people, has been really great. And I've made some really good friends on there.
I feel like before you came out, you were like, I don't know how to make my own friends. And then afterwards you were like, way to open the door to friendship. It's really brave that you're withstanding the scrutiny that comes with being like a public person when like you didn't really ask for this.
Like I've heard from this one woman whose daughter came out as trans, and she was like, yeah, she really resonated with your story. And I was like, oh, that's really nice. And like that makes me feel like, okay, not that I'm doing anything, but like, oh, this is not a bad thing to be doing.
I think about that a lot when I think about like how hard it is to be like a trans woman online.
Yeah.
And like how you just kind of wanted to live your life and you're just like, surprise, you're sort of thrust into mine by virtue of like what I do. And like, I know that makes your burden harder. Sometimes people will send me terrible messages, which like, okay, trigger warning for transphobia. Like sometimes people will message me being like, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. It's just like, I cannot believe this person is doing this to you. And it's just like, what do you mean? Like, first of all, this person isn't doing anything to me. If anything, I'm doing stuff to them because I am subjecting them to added difficulty of being a trans person.
Yeah, you're not though.
So you're doing surgeries next.
I'm looking at doing some body contouring and facial feminization. Facial feminization is an umbrella term for a suite of different surgeries that you can get done. It works incredibly well, and you get really good results in terms of like, you know, just like not having like as defined a brow ridge. While you're there, you kind of just do a bunch of other stuff, like, you know, feminize my nose a little bit, flip up my top lip, you know, suck out some of this, pull my hairline down.
You're gonna feel busted after this.
Oh yeah, no, it's gonna be like I was hit by a truck.
A sexy truck.
You know, I'm gonna be like heavily bruised and bandaged for like a couple weeks.
A sexy mummy. But you're excited about this, like it's happening.
I'm lucky to have very good insurance and to have resources of people who help me navigate the insurance. Because even with good insurance, they still don't want to pay for stuff. So
yes.
A lot of it's figuring out how to ask the right questions.
You are in a very privileged position for this.
Yeah.
But it's still a kind of a pain.
Still kind of a pain in the neck.
What are some things you wish you'd known 2 years ago that you know now?
The importance of self-advocacy. Can't stress that enough. Honestly, I wish I had known that most people are really chill. I haven't lost any relationships that I care about because of being trans. I, again, have been incredibly lucky in that fact. My family has been very embracing of it, and you know, my social group has been very embracing of it.
In fact, like the person who was the best man at our wedding co-wrote an episode of Kids TV with a trans actor.
Funny story.
The power went out.
Yeah, and
we're
is
filming
not expected to be back for
several hours.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap this video up
Why aren't we finishing it tomorrow?
because Jen's going on vacation and we have to finish it
we have to finish it today. So.
Anyway, that's our video. If you have any other questions, if there's enough that we didn't answer that we could answer in like a different video about something.
Yeah,
we could do more. I don't know.
Yeah, we could do a Q&A video
or
if
something.
we get enough questions from folks.
But
Just
yeah.
you know where to find us.
Let's go find somewhere with air conditioning.
Yeah. Bye. Love you.
Bye.